Okay, hello everybody and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Tom Strnad. I am the lead digital artist of the Creator Space, and I want to welcome everyone to this exciting workshop where we're going to look at 360 video. So 360 video production, so immersive 360 video with GoPro Fusion. So I want to start off by thanking all of our partners in this project. So we have the Canada Council for the Arts, we have our library partners, the Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, and the Wasaga Beach Public Library. Now, what's really cool is this, the equipment we're going to be looking at, the GoPro Fusion camera, is actually available. So you can take it out, available from our library partners. So we, right now at the Blue Mountains Public Library and shortly at the Wasaga Beach Public Library. So this equipment is accessible if you're a library member. You simply can go online, you can put a hold on it to book it, or you can go to the library to take it out. So it's just like taking out books. If you're a member of either the Blue Mountains Public Library or Wasaga Beach Public Library, you can access this camera. And it will be coming soon to the Collingwood Public Library as well in the new year. So really exciting. So everything we learned today, I'll be showing you with the exact camera and equipment that you can yourself go and take out from the library. So that's really the cool part of today's webinar. Okay, so let's start off. Just a quick overview of what we'll talk about today. So what is 360 video? So, what does that mean? What does it look like? GoPro Fusion camera overview. So we'll talk about the whole camera and what it looks like and the setup of the camera and so on. And then we'll look at some of the best practices for 360 video production, like what's the best way to operate the camera and use the camera. Then we will look at the GoPro app. That is a free app, and you can use it on your smartphone or tablet. So I'll be demoing with an iPad that I have hooked up. And then we'll look at offloading the footage to prepare for editing, what that means. And in the overview of the camera, we'll look at it just technically too, like all the different features on the camera and how it works. We'll, just so you can really pick it apart and look at the brains of this system. So that's what we want to achieve today. And then if you haven't already, you can sign up for next week. We will have the 360 video editing. So same time, and events.tbmcs.ca. You can check it out there. And some of the things we'll be talking about today too is some of the frame rates and resolution and things like that. We have a great YouTube video you can check out at tbmcs.ca. And there's a video essentials, so all the information on frame rates, resolution. So please check that out. Gives you a good primer on some of the stuff we'll be talking about too. If you're hungry for more knowledge in this particular area, then we'll end off today with a Q&A. I can feel free to ask questions as we go along. And the best part is that with this crowdcast format, if you're registered today, you can rewatch this, so you can always go over it again. And we'll be posting the video on our YouTube channel too. So plenty of ways to rewatch this and check out these concepts of 360 video. Okay. So what is 360 video? Big question. It sounds complicated, sounds intense, and I'm hoping by the end of today's discussion that everyone will have a good understanding of what that means. And really, I want to show how simple it is. It's the GoPro system makes it super easy to use. You don't have to have any kind of background in video production. What you see is what you get, and essentially the camera sees everything. So you don't even have to worry about what your angles are. And we'll see next week in the video editing of 360 that we can extract regular footage from this as well. And, and also just use it as a 360 immersive technology. So it's not that complicated. We're not creating 3D virtual environments. We're basically using a GoPro camera that shoots with at least 2 lenses. They can have more than 2. Some have 6, some have 12. So there's the amount of lenses can vary in resolution quality and stuff. The one we're looking at, the GoPro Fusion, has basically, we're talking about, 2 lenses. So it has one on the front and one on the back. And that's all it is. Really simple. Look how small it is in my hand. This is all we're talking about. So really demystifying what 360 video is. It's not complicated. It's really fun to get into. And the possibilities are quite endless. And that's what I love about it. Now, you're essentially capturing what you see by looking all around. So you're looking at 100 degrees up, down, around, on all the sides, and making things it's immersive because you as a viewer can decide where you're looking. So because it captures everything, you can then decide if you're looking up, down, left, right, front, back, right? So basically those 6 planes we want to talk about, right? So if you always think about, it can look forward, behind, left, right, up, down. So think of those 6 squares that it's capturing. It's doing it with 2 lenses, but those are those 6 kinds of squares essentially where you can look. So I can look to my left, I can look to my right, I can look up, down, front, and back, right? So that's the 360 rule. Now it's all stitched together. So think of it like being inside a globe. So we're used to seeing that Earth globe, right? So now you are in that globe, right? So that sphere is kind of that idea. You're inside the globe and you can look anywhere inside it in that kind of sphere. So think of it as an audience, you're in the globe. So now you can either then put the video and people can watch it in VR goggles, and then by moving around the GPS or the geo movement device senses that you're looking up, down, and it moves the video for you. You can also just have it on a plain video like YouTube, Facebook, Vimeo, and the user can use their mouse to move the image up, down, left, right. Or if you have something like a tablet or smartphone, by moving the tablet around, you can see different planes as well. So it's a really cool concept in how we can view things and look at stuff. So let's look at what that means. So let me just pull up my iPad here, and I'm hoping I can connect it directly because this will let me show you versus show you the actual movement of 360 by moving things around. So I'm just going to pull up a video. Let's get to the right video. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to go to full screen. And what I'm going to be doing is I have the iPad in my hands here. And what I'm going to be able to do is I'm going to be able to spin it around, and you guys will see the resulting movement of what it looks like. So I'm just going to pause it here. Let me just pause the video. Okay, so now I'm going to cut over to the, okay, so this is my iPad directly. So this is 360 video at work. So right now I can spin my iPad. So again, let's go back to me so you can kind of see. So I'm spinning my iPad around, up, down, left, right. And this is the immersive quality of 360. And I think this is a good way to display it. So I just paused a video that we shot of the Mary Ward shipwreck underwater. And look at this. I'm going to spin it all the way around, right? So this is me in the chair spinning around with my iPad. So imagine this could be goggles. So I'm going all the way around 180 degrees, right? Back to where I started, okay? And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to be able to look up, okay? And then I can also look down. And down we're going to see is where the kind of the camera is attached to. So it's called the bottom or the nadir of it. And I just did a little blur on it. And you can see because it's such a fisheye lens, it stitches it and basically removes the little tripod that's holding it. So it's pretty clean. You don't have to do too much work. So it's that immersive that this is just the still frame, again, left, right, moving around. So this could be goggles, this could be an image, right? So really, really cool. So, you know, what does that exactly look like? So let me just pull up just a quick image. Okay, so what does the equirectangular image look like? So this is kind of that concept of then, you know, what does it end up looking like? Like when we start, you know, what does something look like? Okay, so here's some samples of equirectangular images. Okay, so essentially, you know, so this is what it is. It's wrapped around, right? So just a few samples. You can purchase photos, you can do them as video, right? So today we're focused on video. So equirectangular is that whole concept that this is what it looks like wrapped around. So imagine again, we have all the planes wrapped around, then we have the bottom stretched around and the top stretched around. And that's what's called the equirectangular image. And that's how 360 works to get us all the way here. So the equirectangular is then played out into this device, and I can see everything in a 360 world, right? So we go from, something like, from like this, we get ourselves all the way to this. Here's the equirectangular image of this. You can see it's all wrapped around. You see the bottom, and this is what it looks like in this equirectangular format. And now, let me just go back. I'm going to find the same kind of spot on this actual video. Okay, so that's the equirectangular photo, right? And what happens is, and let's just make this a bit bigger, so you can see that whole image, left, right, right? So this is unwrapped. So this is how we end up shooting. So this, once we understand the principles of how we're shooting, it makes it really easy to figure out how we can place the camera and how it works. So it's taking the two front and back lenses of this camera, right? The front and the back, okay? And it's capturing this. Then this is stitched together, the front and the back, and that kind of, think of this as the globe, again, the sphere. So it's a world map that's unwrapped. And this is what the world map looks like on your wall, right? So that's the same idea. We take the globe of the Earth, we unwrap it, it's the same idea, equirectangular. It kind of spreads the whole Earth onto a flat image. How do we represent a sphere on a flat image? An equirectangular wrapping. And now, this is the same kind of image, right? In its 360 format, where now I can move it around, look up, down, and see that same kind of an image, the back side of this, right? And you can see it looks pretty seamless, right? We have the nice glow of the water and the sun, right? So this is the 360 immersive thing. And all I'm doing, again, is just taking the iPad and spinning it around, right? And that's the technology of 360. And that could be done with goggles or with like an iPad as well, right? So we have those options. Or it can also be done with a mouse. So if you don't have a device that has the ability to spin around and deal with 360, like an iPad, then you might also be able to just use your mouse. So we might be used to seeing that, like in Facebook, there's a 360 video and you want to move around with your mouse. Okay, so that's the principles. Now we understand the principles. We're taking the two lenses, we're stitching them together, we create this, and then eventually it leads to this, right? So that's our whole idea. And you can see this, it's kind of a square image, and whereas the equirectangular is exactly 2:1. So what that means is it's basically there's 2:1. So this is 1, and there's 1, 2. So that's the aspect ratio. It's exactly 2:1. And this allows us to then wrap it around, and because it gives you a square at any given time. So the geometrics are 2:1, then we end up with that square, which is just like this. You can see it looks like very much like a square. And that's when you look at this in goggles, it feels like it's right in your face, and it's very peripheral and immersive in that ratio. IMAX is also very similar to a square when you go to see an IMAX movie, because the screen wraps around you, and the point is that it has the same horizontal and vertical kind of area, right? So that's a lot of the initial tech talk of how do we wrap our heads around what 360 is. So that's what it is. Seems very complicated, but as we'll learn from in editing and the apps that are available, all of this stuff's free. The GoPro apps, it puts everything together and it works perfectly to create all this complexity of imagery in a very simple and fast way. Essentially, you can create 360 videos with something as simple as an iPad. So it doesn't have to be a supercomputer, or we can take it to the next level, as we'll show next week, in using some of this editing software like DaVinci Resolve, and then adding 360 effects and work to it in that manner as well. So there's kind of the world is out there for how much you want to do to it. You can quickly export like a quick photo, put it on your social media, or you can get into editing and put things together. And that's what we'll look at next week. Okay, so let's have an overview of the, let's look at the camera. So here's my camera. Okay, let me just get this into, oops. Let's focus this. And we'll just zoom in a bit here. Okay, there we go. Just getting used to where I am here on this lens. Okay, so here's the camera, right? So we have a power button, we have a lens, we have an LCD screen right here, and then we have the other side. And they call one like a front and a back, but the main thing is that there's two lenses. So we got the front. I always call this the front because I can see that. So the front and the back, right? And we got this this button right here, the record button. So to start the camera, it's as simple as I can just hit this record button. Okay, it's going to turn on, and it starts recording. So you can see it's going 1, 2, 3, 4. So within here, it tells me the technical specs of the frame rates and resolution I'm shooting in. It gives me a power, 74% battery, and it gives me how much time is left. And let's just zoom in here a little bit more. I'm hoping you can see that. So this is 58 minutes, 74% battery, and I'm shooting in a 5.6K 24 frame mode. So it's how many frames per second, and then also the resolution, in this case being 5.6K. Now the reason it sounds like, oh, that's a lot of resolution, why? The reason it uses a lot of resolution is because it wraps everything around. So it needs a high resolution because at any given point, when you're looking at one side, so think about it again, front, back, left, right, top, or bottom, that 5.6K is divided by 6. So it's only about an HD 1K at any given square. So that's why we have such a high resolution, so that we can deal with a pretty reasonable resolution in viewing. And that's what's important. Okay, so then I'm just going to hit the record button, saving, that's it. And it says I did clip 1. That's how easy it is to use this camera. So you just hit the record button and it's ready to go. Okay, so let's take this apart a little bit. What happens in here? So on this side here, I'm going to push this button, and then this door is going to slide up. Okay, and inside here, okay, we have the battery. Okay, and this battery just slides out like so. There's a little flap. I'm going to hold it up, and it just slides out like so. Okay, so that gives us the battery out. Okay, and then I just slide it back in, and that's it. That's how simple it is to get the battery in and out. Now, and then it just puts a little red light, like, okay, it's initiated, ready to go. So that's the battery, sliding the battery in and out. It's foolproof. You can only put it in one way. It won't let you slide it all the way in if it's the other way around, right? So that's our battery installation. Okay, so that's great. So all you need is a battery. I always say get a fresh battery. And while we're on this, how do we charge batteries? So what's really cool is we've created the kits to include a bit of a charger as well. Okay, and the charger is just a little unit like so. And what it does is it's a USB charging unit. You just put the batteries in the top like so, and you plug in the cable. And there's just a USB cable that comes with each charging kit. Okay, so all you have to do is take a battery, and each kit from the library comes with 3 batteries, and you just put the battery in the kit, and it's ready to go. And we just charge with the USB cable, plug it into any USB computer. The battery charges. It takes about 30 minutes. So always give yourself time to charge anything when you're getting it from the library, because the person before may not have charged it, so you want to always have enough time. Give yourself a few hours to charge all your batteries before your planned shoot. Okay, so that's it for the charging part. So let's get back to the camera. Okay, so we're going to take this camera, right? Again, we have the door open here. Now, what's inside the door is important. This is going to be always important to work with. We have the SD cards. So you'll see it says SD1 and SD2. These are micro SD cards. I know it's really tiny, but they're not so hard to deal with. You just want to be careful that you're not losing them, but they're actually not that hard to work with at the end of the day. Okay, so to get them out, I'm just going to push down. It's going to do a little click. Okay, and now you can see it's kind of half coming out, right? So from that point, I can just slide it out with my finger. So it's hard to really show this in detail, but I slide it out. I have the card out, okay? And now, to work with the footage, I'm going to put it into this micro SD card converter to regular SD card. And that way I can then put it into any device that can read an SD card. Okay, so I'm going to put the micro into the full SD card. Just slide it in like so. And then you can see this has the regular features of an SD card. And now the micro is adapted into the large, and that can just go into a computer. So from there, I can actually take these, put them into a back of a computer that can handle SD cards, and then we can deal with it that way. So that's really great that we can actually use the SD card in that manner, and not be worried about the little micro one. It gets adapted, it goes into the computer, and that's how we can read it. So that's really the main thing there, is how do we read the cards. So it comes with two, and that's the important thing too. So there's 1 and 2, as we saw. So you offload 1, offload 2. I always put them into a folder, folder 1 and folder 2, and we'll look at that next week in the editing class for 360 in the editing webinar. So that makes it really simple to work with. You got 1, 2, and then the 2 get stitched together, right? And that's the real fun part, is that the 1 and 2 get stitched together. Then you end up with this rectangular background. Okay, so that's the cool part. I'm going to put the card just back in, and I'll show you guys how that looks. So it's right here, and I'm going to put it back into 1, right? So we got 1 and 2, right? And the chips face out. And again, you can only put it in one way or the other. So if it doesn't work, don't force it. You want it to click in really easily. So I'm just going to, again, this is going to face out, away from the battery, the actual back microchip. And, okay, you see it there? See it slid in like that, right? And then I'm just going to do a gentle push down. And now it's engaged. And it won't record if there's any issue. And also you won't be able to close the back door if there's any kind of an issue. Okay, I'm just going to zoom out a little bit here. It's a little easier. So now I can just close the door. Okay, and it's ready to go. Now there's waterproofing. It's water resistant, waterproof for a few meters as well. So it can go underwater, and it can get wet. So that's why it's a pretty durable camera. GoPros are, I always say you can almost, step on them. I've had them run over and they still work. So, just be careful, but they're very durable and, shock proof and everything. So that's the great thing. Now this camera also has image stabilization. So if you're walking with it, you'll be able to, it does image stabilization in its rendering. So that's the really fun part too. Okay, so now we did this simple where we just hit the record and we're recording. Now let's look at if we want to do some more work with changing modes and things like that. Okay, so I'm going to hit the mode button here, which is also the power button. And this allows it to go into menus and not record. So I'm going to hit that, 3 seconds. Okay, it powers it on. You always hear these beeps. Okay, it's not going to be recording. So now it says, okay, video camera, and it gives all the standby information. So 5.6K, 24 frames, 57 minutes left on the SD cards. Those are 32 gig cards, so you get about an hour on each. So together, the combined one, because remember you're recording the front and back, so you get about an hour total. The battery will last about an hour as well. So battery to shooting ratio is about the same. So you won't even need to change your battery before you fill your card, most likely, unless you leave it on for a long time. It'll power off after, I believe it's 3 minutes, and to save battery. Okay, so then from here, I can hit mode, and I can go to different settings. So I can go to the photo mode. I can take photos. I can go to time lapse. So I can do like time lapse, taking a photo every, so many seconds or minutes. And then I can go to the wrench. Okay. Now to access the wrench, I'm going to now hit the record button. And now it's going to give me a bunch of different settings. Okay. So then I can go to, video, and then I can click here, and here I can click on this, and I can choose the frame rates. So I can do 60 frame, 24 frame, 30 frame, and 60 frame. 60 frame brings it down, the resolution, to just 3K, because it has to shoot more frames per second. So, but in the 24 frame and the 30 frame, it's 5.2 is 30, and 24 frames at 5.6K. Okay, so that's basically the main thing that I always work on in changing any settings. So now I'm going to go down, and you can choose the ISO limit. So in this case, I have it set at 1600, and the idea there is that so it doesn't get too noisy. So you can go 400, 6400, 1600. So I like 1600 because that's a pretty good trade-off where it's not too noisy. 6400 will start to get really noisy. So a lot of kind of pixel noise will happen, right? And that's really the main menus there. So let me just cycle through here. And then when you're done, just hit the record button, and I'm back and ready to record. So again, this is the video one. We're going to look at some 360 photo ones in the future as well. But again, you would just be able to access that at the photo and go to the photo wrench here. So I hit the record, and then I can hit the go through here. Done. One more time here. Mode to here. I'll hit record, and I can go to the photo settings, hit record again. I can go to time-lapse settings, and then I can go to connection settings. Okay, and being able to connect with the camera. Okay. So now while I'm in the connection settings, we're going to basically make sure that it's connecting. So that's this little Wi-Fi icon. And how do we connect it to the iPad? So this is the fun part, is now I can actually connect what I'm doing with this camera right to my iPad. Okay, so what I'll do now is I'm going to go to the iPad. Let's switch over there. So I'm on the iPad, and I will connect to my GoPro app. And let me see where there it is, GoPro app. Okay, so I'm going to open the GoPro app. And now what I want to do is I'm going to use this, there's a little camera icon in the bottom here. So I'm going to hit that. Mountain Goat Fusion, camera found. And I'm going to control my GoPro. It's going to ask to join the Wi-Fi network of the actual GoPro Fusion camera. Okay, that's just going to take a second. Okay, so while that's loading, and we're going to get to connect the camera, Let's just talk about a couple of the best practices scenarios. So we got this camera. Again, there's two lenses, and what this is called is the stitch line happens along this perimeter. So the side edge, right? So we got this front camera, back camera, and then we got this kind of stitch wall here. So best practices, the main thing you need to think about is 360 video is that if anything important is happening, so let's say you're doing like interviews with people, you want to make sure that this stitch line isn't like cutting in their face, right? So I always say put anything that's not too important where this edge is, because that's basically your stitch line. Okay, so if there's something really important like a piece of art and you're doing the 360 of a gallery, let's say, of an artist profile and you're doing a virtual gallery experience, you want to make sure that the art is always facing one of the cameras and not this edge sidewall where it could get cut off and distorted, because that is our stitch line. That's really the main thing you have to think about with 360. The other thing is, what do you want to do? So there's two shots essentially in 360. Is a still shot that's set up on a tripod and it's just set up standing still in a room and stuff happens. It could be an interview, it could be action sequence, it could be just a space showing a gallery and it's just on a tripod, right? Or we can do like a moving shot, so I can then walk with the camera can be on a rope, the camera can be on a remote control car. There's all sorts of ways. So the main thing is that in movement, you want to try and hide how it's being moved. And that's really one of the best practices. So it could be as simple, and I showed you guys with the image of the Mary Ward that you don't see a lot because the fisheye lenses kind of hide the bottom. And it could be as simple as just having the camera like on you can have like a helmet, you can put a GoPro mount and go with it, just like a GoPro camera. You won't really see too much about the person underneath, which is good. So that you can even just do a little bit of a blur. So that's one way to just do a movement. The other way is you get this this kind of a little GoPro tripod, comes with the kits at the library as well. Comes with the GoPro Fusion camera itself. And it's like a little mini tripod. So with the mini tripod, you can essentially attach the camera to this. And so this is one of those standard GoPro mounts as well. So I'm just going to open this up. Okay, and then I'm just going to put the camera into the mount here. So again, just like any kind of GoPro, you just slide it in. It has the lines or the little circles, right? And then I'm going to put the GoPro thread through. Of course, it's going to fall in my demo, but there we go. That should be good now. Okay, and I'm just going to tighten it. And the cool thing is, best practices are that we keep the camera pretty like level in terms of, so it's not really a, like a forward angle or a back angle, right? We want to keep it pretty level. And, but if you happen to have it not perfectly level, in 360, in the video editing process, we can actually adjust that and fix that. So we can fix our horizon line in the 360 post. So not too much to worry about. So that's why I say it's kind of a point and shoot camera. You hit record and you go. It's doing auto exposure, auto focus. And the only thing there is I showed you guys the ISO. I recommend putting it to either 400 or the 1600 and not to the 6400 mode where there can be a lot more noise. Okay, so now this is a cool little tripod. It lets me extend it out. It's kind of like a selfie stick. So with the selfie stick, I can now walk with the selfie stick, right? So by simply just putting this like above my head, right? So I can just have this kind of above my head like so, and walk with it, I can get some pretty cool shots. So I can just walk with it, right? There's image stabilization, so you won't really see the footsteps. It'll look like it's a pretty flowing shot. And so I usually just put this above my head and I can walk through and get some really great moving shots that way. So again, keeping in mind that the stitch line will be right here. So you want to always deal with what's on the front and the back lens as being important. So if what's important is to the left and right of me more than what's in the front and back of me, I would carry it this way. And again, just, it's not, you're never going to have everything perfectly in there. And the stitch line isn't anything to be that concerned about. It's more important, especially if you have it close to someone's face. Okay, so now I have the GoPro app running on my iPad. Here's what it looks like. Oops. It's trying to power me off. Okay, 1 second here. Little technical. Okay, here we go. Press the side button on the iPad and it goes. Okay, so here's what this looks like, right? So here's the kind of view of the 360 camera. So you can see now with my iPad, I can see everywhere around as I'm sitting here in my editing suite, right? So the camera lets me virtually see the stitch and so on. So let me put it really close to something. And just trying to make it see itself. If we can get kind of a bad stitch line. And again, it's so good, but here, you can probably see a little bit. There's my hand holding it. See the keyboard? And that's the stitch line, right? It's just, it kind of cuts the keyboard. It's not perfect. It will get better when we post-process it and get it ready for editing. But that's a really good example of kind of what happens with, see the keyboard? It's supposed to be totally straight, but it does that little bit of a jagged cut. And that's the stitch line area. So something that's not too important, that won't matter to the keyboard, but if that was really crucial, I'd want to actually have it. See, and now with the full lens, I'm not getting that stitch line and the keyboard is totally uncut, right? So that's a fun example of how we can deal with the stitch lines or making sure that it's not cutting things off too much, right? So again, keeping things that aren't too important around the edge and keeping everything that's the most important on the front and back lens. Now this tripod can be just put down on its actual legs. So it is a tripod, right? So I can just have it standing somewhere, for example, like that. And then I'm just getting the shot of the room, right? So now this is just still, right? So there's no movement, right? And it's just me capturing in 360, right? So no movement, just a static shot, right? Or watch now if I'm holding still and I start to do the movement, you can see it adds movement, plus I can spin around. So those are really your main two options of 360. Do you have it static? Do you want it to be static, or do you want it to move to give people the ability to, walk through a room? So again, selfie stick concept, I can just walk with it. I could put it on a fishing line and, kind of have it spin around like on a rope across the room. If you want to use like a fishing line, you'd barely see it. That's a really great tool to use as well. Or I've seen people putting, you can put this, this whole kind of tripod unit on a remote control car. And that could be really fun too. So, you can again have the tripod up. So this kind of tripod could be like on a remote control car, and then you could drive it through an area. So there's image stabilization. You just want to be aware that too much bumpiness could still be a little bit affect the quality of the final footage and shot. Okay, so that's the main idea. So now how do we connect with the actual GoPro? So I just wanted to show in my settings on the iPad what it's doing. Okay, so what it's doing here is it's actually connecting with the Mountain Goat Fusion camera. You can see right here. And that is the Wi-Fi that it's using. So instead of using that's how it's communicating with the camera, is through that Wi-Fi. And, how do we make that work is, it's going to go back to the camera here. How do we make that work is, again, through that mode. So if I go to the mode, okay, I'm going to hit record to access that. Then I'm going to hit record to get to here. And it's in this point here where we can set up our connection points. Okay, and what we do here, let me just get into the focus there. So on the connection point here, okay, so now I can access, I'll go down here to connect, hit the record button, and it's going to say connect to the GoPro app, right? And I'm going to hit record, right? And now what it's doing is it's saying, hey, connect. And the password is action 8888. So you can see how so that's it, camera name. And right now this blue is connecting to the app and it's making it connect. And that's how you connect any new app. And it's going to say, okay, found the camera, and it's going to ask for that password in your Wi-Fi. That's how simple it is to set up the actual camera. So that's just the quick way to do that. And then so that's called pairing, right? But it's already paired, so I don't need to do that. And I'm just going to get out of here. So again, mode and record button. Mode is to cycle through all the menu items, and record is to execute them. I'm going to go done, so I'm back to my, my camera. So the video mode is just works with this little video camera. Hit record again to stop. Now I can also, this is the fun part, is now I can, with this camera on the iPad, I can control it too. So I can hit record right here. And you can see now there's a red button and it's recording. Hit record again and I can stop. And here I can also then set up all the settings. So in the bottom corner here, there's a little settings icon. And here I can do all the different things too. Frames, the ISO, the sensitivity maximum, brightness of LCD, video formats, all this kind of stuff. And I can change to video. I can change to photo, right? So now I'm in photo mode, video mode, time-lapse mode. So I can do it all in the app. So it's a little bit faster than going through that menu and so on. But if for any reason you can't connect, don't worry. It just helps see what you're shooting, but again, it sees everything. You just watch your stitch line, and then you're ready to go. Okay, so I hope that helped to give that intro on 360 video. Again, all we're worried about is, do we want it to be a static shot? Are we going to move? And worrying about where our stitch line is. You simply hit the record button to start recording, and it's ready to go. And after that, you put in a fresh battery. I showed you guys how to do the battery swaps, charge your batteries, and then you're going to take those SD cards out, put them into the large reader, right? And then slide them in there, and then we're going to offload all of the footage, and then it's ready for editing. Okay, so let's just go back to perfect. I think, yeah, we have a bunch of time for questions. There might be a lot of questions, so let's start looking at that. Okay, so first question here, we have how much storage would be required on an iPad to be able to watch in 360 a 5-minute video? Great question. So I'm finding roughly it's about 1 gig per video minute of 360 video of the final video, right? So, and that's, again, that's if it's in the full like 5.6K and so on. So it's about a minute per, about a gig per minute. So about 5 gig storage could easily be used up. Now, the great thing is, and I'll show that next week, is we can actually make smaller compressed video files that you can have on your iPad. So it could be, a 1/10 of that size. So 5 gigs could be, 500 megs instead of 5 gigs. So that's a real a bonus in terms of working with it that way, right? So, and that's the offloading. So I should mention too, in the offloading mode, that once you open the door, right, there's card 1 and card 2. So I just want to emphasize that we're always removing card 1 and card 2 and copying everything from those cards into a folder. I simply call it card 1 and card 2, and then we're ready to edit. So that's really important, is that you're always doing both the cards, because otherwise you'd only have one of the cameras. It's not, one is not a backup. One, represents this one and two represents the other one. And you need both to be able to stitch them together into that equirectangular image that we spoke about. So that's really, really important. Make sure you always offload, take the data from both the cards as well. The other thing here too is the actual battery chargers. You can do 2 batteries, and they will be red when they're charging, and then they go either blue or green when they're fully charged. That's how you know you've fully charged it. So that's key as well. If you charge it half, you'll get, instead of an hour, you might only get half an hour of actual battery use. But they're quite a good battery, and it works quite well. Now, the other thing too is 360, because it's using the fisheye lens, it's important to keep them clean. Now, it's nothing too fancy. If you have a lens cloth, or at a minimum, your cotton shirt, using something just to keep it clean, and it's a bit of a dome. But some things like snow, we've had snow now, rain, and water droplets can really be apparent in the 360 image. So you want to try and always keep that pretty clean. Okay? Cool. Okay, so next, so here's a question. So if using 360 video for real estate work, would you shoot it just like anything else, and that you use both static and tracking shots? Yeah, so the great question. Creatively, in terms of how you want to work with the 360 camera, again, you have to think about how you want to tell the story. So when do you want an audience just to be able to just kind of take in the room, and when do you want to move through the room? So it'd be that same idea. If it's real estate exploration, how do you show the space? So yeah, that's a great question, because how do you showcase what the space looks like? Excuse me. And that definitely needs a combination of static and moving images, can really help. Okay. Yes, so the colors are definitely pretty standard. Red is always charging, means that it's not fully charged, the battery, and then the blue-green is done. Also, the camera itself, right? So this GoPro camera will have, when we're actually recording, I'll just hit that again here. So the record button will flash. I believe I actually have it turned off here, because it can show up in spaces. But in the kits, when you get them from the libraries, there's a red light that just flashes that you're recording. And the great thing is, on the actual iPad, you can see there's a running time up there. It says 24 right on the top there. Kind of go this way. So there's the running time right up here, and then this is red showing that it's recording, and then it's not red when it's not recording. So red also symbolizes recording. So I should mention that in this 360 camera world. Perfect. Okay, so yeah, that's a really good question about how do you, and there's a lot of those kinds of theories, and I think best practices from what I've learned now over the last 5 years of 360 video production is, think about what you're trying to tell and what you're trying to show. So if the space that you're looking to explore, you'd like some time for the person to just absorb the space and look around, that's great. And in editing, we'll talk a little bit about the pacing of that as well. Otherwise, you could just do moving shots through everywhere if you want it to be more of a walkthrough of a location. I like the combination where, let's say if I'm, moving through, and then be able to go to a static moment where, okay, here we are now, just to absorb this particular area, or we've reached this room or this spot, and we want to stay static for a little bit. The other thing too is you can incorporate it that since the camera sees everything, another great best practice is to incorporate people in the shots. So let's say it's a family enjoying having a barbecue in their backyard. You can actually showcase the family, and the family could be the ones moving the camera. So it could go to the barbecue. Maybe the mom's going to the barbecue and finishing some chicken wings. So that movement can happen there. It could be told through a certain character, and they could be moving around. Some 360 productions have gone as far as having people dress in certain costumes. So let's say it's a military recreation in 360. You can have the person in a uniform moving the camera around, or being around the camera to kind of get that footage. It can also not just being above; it could be beside you, and that could be an interesting perspective. But then you will see the person holding it, right? So that's where what the person's wearing, they should really be part of the scene and not to be outside of the scene. So the war things I've seen, historical recreations, they've done that where people are dressed in uniform and running with the camera, but it makes sense because it feels like that's part of that camera operator operating the 360 camera is actually part of the scene. So it's a really cool way to do it. Okay, here's a great question, and I think, this will be a great way to kind of end off things, is what is the audio? So the audio is fantastic on this. So it does a couple things. It records from this, it records with, I believe, from what I recall, there's 6 microphone inputs, and it's called the ambisonic sound. And what that does is it knows there's a front, back, top, left, right, and it's recreating the sound as it hears it spatially. So as you spin around, I have a computer fan running. So if you spin the camera around, the fan will become louder as the camera, as wherever the lens sees that fan. But by moving the camera, it's going to shift the loudness of the fan. So you get the perspective in watching it, that kind of surround perspective. This is something we were going to have some more upcoming workshops in and explore what that means. And working in that field, DaVinci Resolve now has the ability to work in that 3D sound environment. So we will have upcoming workshops on that as well. Now the great thing is you can just extract the stereo sound from it. It's quite good. The only thing you have to remember is if it's moving around somewhere, or wind can be an issue. So if that's the case, I would recommend getting some external sound as well. For documentaries, I would recommend getting something like the sound recording kit that has like the Zoom H4n recorder that's available through our library partners as well. And we just did a whole workshop on recording with that kit, so you can that will be posted on our YouTube channel shortly. And that's a great way to do it for interviews, is to get additional sound and not just the camera sound. Again, it could be really far from your interview subjects, but it's great for just the regular ambience. Definitely a great, I've got some really good sound in exteriors like woods and things like that. So it's quite a good microphone system, but you definitely have to work with wind and proximity of people. And working with that. So, those factors, the stitch line and then the sound and things like that. But yeah, really great question on the audio. And we will be exploring that and the creative possibilities of creating the directional sound environments that's now available in DaVinci Resolve 17. So we'll start exploring that more in the new year for sure. So that's really great. So stay tuned for more on that. And I encourage everyone to check out the camera if they haven't yet. If you're a member of the Blue Mountains Public Library, just feel free to go and take it out. You just need a library card. And Wasaga Beach Public Library, it'll be available, any day now. So you can get in touch with them and find out when you can take the camera out. And it's there. So yeah, we encourage you to do that. Yeah, start exploring 360 video. Check out some videos online. Vimeo has a ton of 360 videos, YouTube as well, and you will see them on Facebook as well. But definitely check out some 360 videos and see what people are doing, and it can inspire on how you can tell your story in the 360 world as well. Okay, so yeah, that about finishes up our webinar here. So once again, my name's Thomas Sternat. I'm the lead digital artist of the Creator Space. Thanks for joining us. You can rewatch this on the Crowdcast platform, and we will be posting it on our YouTube channel as well. So want to thank all our partners in this great project, the Canada Council for the Arts, the Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, and the Wasaga Beach Public Library. Have a great rest of the day, and I hope to see you next week when we look at 360 video editing. See you then. Take care.